this is a problem of the times we live in, because these people received tools that they can express themselves. I mean, I believe Holocaust deniers existed in the pre-internet era, as we all know, but now it's so easy to share it. And on one hand, the challenge is what tools do we have? Because I believe that, again, our positions we do not discuss with the deniers. It would be placing them at the same level that respected institutions, and this is disrespectful to everything that we represent. But we need to find educational tools, online or offline, to talk to this huge majority in between. I mean, people who are exposed to Holocaust denial and Holocaust distortion and many other distortions, when we say about Auschwitz, it's not only Holocaust distortion, but we can say about the memory of the Roma, memory of the Poles, memory of the Soviets, and many other groups, that we need to know what's going on. We need to maybe build materials, maybe coordinate our work to a different extent ourselves. But I think that also a challenge is a little bit of responsibility should be put to the social media platforms that allow such discussion, that allow creation of such spaces. And a lot have been said recently about the responsibility of, I don't know, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and with the TikTok debate, that was another part, that whether anti-Semitism denial should be allowed. But so on one hand, we need to be aware, and we should be a little bit of a talkbackist. I mean, social media give us the voice, and not necessarily we need to answer to every troll, although it's very tempting, but maybe be present in this public discussion when we feel that there is an educational opportunity, that we can reach more people, that we can make people aware that, you know, maybe not every first Google result that you'll find will be accurate, and maybe you should see more, or if every page that you'll find on Facebook, you know, people, and maybe this is something for the young generation, they know less how to get to sources, how to analyze the information that gets to them. And this is the digital illiteracy that is also a huge challenge in these changing times. But I think that there must be a discussion whether policymakers, whether social media platforms can help us. I mean, we will not change the policy of Facebook or Twitter that allows such people and do not respond when we report such comments. And so this is, well, for us, it's important that we haven't met distortion or denial at the site. This is rather the discourse, because it's so easy to be a denier when you have a keyboard and a screen anywhere in the world and you can comment anonymously somewhere. So we need to step in, but again, finding limitations, not to feed the trolls. That's important.
But can I hit something, please? Hello?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Hello?
go ahead.
Yeah.
My point is, there is a site for other subjects that's called non-relevant. You know, sometimes there are some stories on the network, and what we have back here in Israel, that you can actually consult a site called non-relevant, and they actually trace every such piece of news and tell you it's true or not. So you don't need to get into discussions with them. You can be the authority, said this is a denial, this is nonsense, and this is the authority to tell you that. And we have such a site for just ordinary news. You know, there's conspiracy news and all kind of stuff that you can go and visit in the non-relevant site. So it could be similar for Holocaust deniers. You don't need to engage in a discussion with them.
Stephanie.
I just had to think, and I'm just sharing this. What I find challenging here is, I guess, I'm more on Pavel's side, because my focus or my perspective is much more that of an educational. So I would not, so my focus would not be really tracing and pinning down whether some comment or statement is accurate or not. That might be interesting to some people and might be important, fine. But my focus would be, how do we deal with something like that? And what I personally find challenging, but I realized after this year's summer school, that it is very, very, very important to move forward with our online offers and our programs with all of the departments and everybody at the memorial. Right now, it's the educators moving forward much easier and much, much easier and quicker perhaps than the researchers, if I may distinguish them as roughly as that. And it's very important to take along all the people in the research department because they have the sources. And I think it's very important to, for them also to offer and give access to all these sources so that everybody can check and get information from the primary sources and not just get filtered information that we pre-selected. That is necessary, of course, as well, but there should be options of diving deeper for everybody themselves actively.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think this comes back to Iris's point about dialogue and responsiveness, that we can set up a social media that just sends out the facts we picked every day, or we can be thinking about what's going on in that world. Iris, did you want to add to this conversation?
Well, yes, I do believe that it's important to build some kind of digital community. And so we shouldn't focus on the deniers and all the trolls and everything. Just like Stephanie and Pavel said, it's more, there are much more people, many more people who are slightly interested, or they don't know they're interested yet, and we have to reach them. And so that's so important to just be visible. And what Stephanie said, it's true. It's not only talking about education, it's just giving, we have to talk about digitalization with the archive, with the educational stuff, with the outreach stuff, with everyone, because I think the online presence is the virtual world is getting more and more important, and we have to be active and not leave the field for the right-wing people.
Fantastic. I think these are really important points, and the post that's just gone up on Digital Holocaust Memory today by Tabea Wiedemann from the University of Constance is talking about computer games, and actually mentions this idea of, we have the kind of neo-Nazi computer games like Concentration Camp Manager and other game spaces where they've created neo-Nazi group identities and strengthened these through collaboration. And one of the things I've always been thinking about in the last year or so is that if Holocaust distortionists, deniers, neo-Nazis are becoming increasingly successful at using digital tech to spread their ideas, what can we learn from them in terms of techniques? We don't want to share their content and we don't want to engage in them, but they're doing something successful in being able to spread these ideas more globally. And let's look at that kind of stuff in more detail and think about that. And I think this idea of a memory community is important, right? If we've got the neo-Nazis are developing identities and collectives, we can do the same for a more positive rationale online. Pavel, I think, added an interesting side there about the corporate responsibility of social media platforms. And it's one of, I think, the tensions, isn't it, with memory. If we want to get a big audience, we need to use the platforms where users go. The rationale for thinking about TikTok is, well, if young people are on TikTok now, Facebook, my students always are like, oh, Facebook, what's that? This old people's stuff. I don't want to mention MySpace or LiveJournal to them or some of the early forums. But it strikes me as a really difficult ethical dilemma, even with Google Arts and Culture. Google and Facebook are increasingly becoming subjects of investigation around behavior manipulation, political manipulation, and surveillance capitalism. They're making a profit out of our data. They're data harvesting. And I think that's something for us to think about kind of long term about the digital, is how do we negotiate between kind of ethical memory about remembering human tragedy and the complexities of this history, and then kind of in that giving data, encouraging visitors or people who are engaging with the memory to become data harvest and surveyed by these corporations. And we'll see what happens. I think there's increasing pressure on these organizations to get away with that. We see it exemplified in the argument between TikTok and Trump at the moment, but it's not, it's not a China issue. This Google and Facebook are doing this in the US and around the world. TikTok's not the first place, and certainly won't be the last